It's about time we have a very serious talk. And to make things perfectly upfront, this will likely be the final road trip talk that we do together. I've tried multiple times now to put down my last word, though life has a way of really changing your perspective as you happen to go through it. Let it be known, however, that this really is the beginning of the end for me. 3 years have passed since I started this whole project. In some ways, it feels a lot longer than that. The 2020s have been just abysmal for everyone, really, but it's no exaggeration to say that making videos on the internet is what has kept me alive all this time. The virtual experiences, which I have documented and shared openly, were experiences where I was able to dictate the flow, the framework, and the meaning. I choreographed events to tell a story of a different life, one where I was more free than I felt in the real world. It ultimately led me to the conclusion that everything in this life is tentative. I've said as much before, but please hear me out. I never actually thought that I would live to see 2022. If you remember Need for Speed Underground, there was a song by Asian Dub Foundation called Fortress Europe. Hearing it in that game, I would have been around 9 at the time. I knew next to nothing about the world, and I didn't have a clue about who I would be a decade later, let alone 2. A few years after that, I would realize I was trans, and then a few more years would pass and I would have a spinal surgery that would literally leave me partially disabled for the rest of my life. So not only was I going to be hated by vast swaths of society just for existing, I was going to be made to endure chronic pain almost every day, forever. In a world that is survival of the fittest, there wasn't a chance in hell of me ever being successful by society's definitions of the word. So, in short, I spent many of my years just being all kinds of reckless and not caring about the consequences. But then I managed to make it to 30, and suddenly I needed to decide what my life was going to be about. And because I always wanted to be a storyteller anyway, I figured the world of street racing games was a good enough space to carve out a name. Having reached the end of this road, I've come to know myself more deeply than I ever have in my entire life, only to realize that I don't understand anybody else. I was never going to be successful in racing game content because of the fact that other people see racing games so differently from me. They simply do not care about the stories being told. They only see this as the reflection of a sport where clout is everything. They see the act of being the best button pusher as the only thing we're striving toward in racing games. An action which is ultimately quite worthless. You know, there was something so unbelievably freeing about the phrase, "It was never about winning." It allowed me to focus on the things that occur between races, the nuances of a world where people race because they truly enjoy cars and driving, rather than just taking a podium finish. But most people do not care about racing unless they can win. It is why games like Forza Horizon do so well. That series makes you feel like a winner, though it never forces you to feel like you've earned it. To live is to lose, or so the saying goes. In life, you have to endure setbacks in order to gain character. A person who is constantly winning truly has no empathy for the loser, and that makes them a very stunted individual. Some of my deepest realizations have come from the setbacks I have experienced in life. By facing persecution for being trans, I have gained humility and respect for people across all minority groups. And being permanently, albeit partially disabled, I have learned that survival of the fittest is a fucking joke. I never chose to have a spinal deformity. That was a condition which manifested at birth. It would practically guarantee that I would always perform physically worse than those around me. Does that mean I don't deserve to have a fulfilled life in some capacity? Because if that were the case, it would mean whatever God oversees this universe has a really sick sense of humor. And in much the same vein, let's talk about what it means to identify as transgender or non-binary. How I present myself has to be for my own peace of mind, more than it ever has to be for anybody else, which is why the rampant discrimination makes no sense to me. I grew up in an era where I believed wholeheartedly that any woman could perform any action on par with the equivalent man, meaning that adopting the behaviors, mannerisms, and appearances of a woman should have been neither an upgrade nor a downgrade to the human experience. Somehow, it is always other people claiming that women are inferior to men, which causes this discrimination to exist. The truth is, women do not exist to appease men. Therefore, trans women do not exist to appease men. And mind you, the inverse is true of men and trans men accordingly. There is no reason I should have been treated differently for how I present myself, because there is nothing insincere in how I present myself. The only insincerity at play here is the misguided idea onlookers have that happiness in life should ever be dictated by a genetic lottery. A lottery that, need I remind you, I had already lost for an entirely different set of reasons. That story is, however, finally approaching some form of a conclusion, which is why we are having this talk to begin with. You see, back at the start of April, I ended up in the hospital again. The metal in my spine pinched a nerve in my neck, leading to perhaps the worst migraine I have ever experienced in my life. A pain so bad I really thought I was going to die that night. Pretty sure I also vomited blood, though the doctors did not really say anything about the contents of the sick bag in question. I decided the following day that I would contact my current neurologist and insist that the metal hardware finally be removed. The neurologist approved the procedure, and that will be happening on July 30th, assuming no unforeseen circumstances. Now, one of three things is going to happen. The first is, there is a non-zero chance I just die on the operating table. There is also a non-zero chance that when I wake up, my partial disability becomes total. Yet, there is a chance that when I wake up, my neurological problems will be gone. I may not be pain-free, but I will have a chance to, at the very least, get some of my life back after all that I have endured over the years. So it is a risk I am willing to take. Considering that I am who I am, and that who I am is a bit of a perfectionist, I already made sure to finish out all of the YouTube shorts that I planned going into the summer and even fall. And once those videos are out, well, that'll be it. That is where the story is going to end. Whether I live or not, I will not be releasing videos anymore after October. The project is finished. All that remains is a question that I am struggling with even now. Can I achieve the same level of happiness and success that the fictional me was capable of experiencing? What I realized most of all is that in my idealized scenario, the fictional me was truly the definition of you will own nothing and be happy. Every car was borrowed, every house a temporary stay. Seasons were measured simply by places traveled and by tasks carried out. There was no career ladder, no retirement plan, just an ever-present, living in the moment continuum of self. I don't see why the real world can't also be like that. I would rather remain entirely broke than to make myself miserable running the materialist rat race that is modern society. Because let's face it, playing by society's rules, I never had a chance anyway. There is so much more I wish I could say, but for once, I would like to keep it somewhat brief. Final order of business regarding Project V2, that also comes to an end with the release of the final YouTube Shorts in October. There is just no reason to keep it going from here on out. Whether you've stumbled upon this video or you've been here for the long haul, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch. I hope that you will enjoy the final videos to come, as well as the ones already available. They shall remain as proof of the life I lived. Because regardless of the interplay between the fiction and the reality, it stands to reason that the only one who needs to be satisfied with the outcome is me. I am, and I exist. Now it's time to figure out what that truly means.